Hey, everybody, welcome to the Addiction Unlimited podcast, where you get to learn everything you want to know about addiction and recovery. I'm your host, Angela Pugh, co-founder of Kansas City Recovery, life coach, and recovering alcoholic. To learn more about me, you can listen to episode 0 on your podcast app or find us on the web at addictionunlimited.com. Hello, my friend. Welcome back to another episode of the Addiction Unlimited podcast. I'm your coach, Angela Pugh. Thank you for spending some time with me today listening to the pod. I'm going to let you in on a little secret. True transformation happens when you fully embrace your identity as a non-drinking person. It's not just about quitting alcohol. It's about stepping into a new lifestyle, taking responsibility, living with purpose, and feeling empowered by it all. When you want long-term sobriety and to feel confident in your recovery and be happier, building a recovery lifestyle is the answer. So the question is, how do you do that? Especially in a world that is saturated with alcohol for every occasion. It's at every gathering, every store. It's all over television and movies. It's even in the coffee shops and gyms now. So to get all the ins and outs of sobriety, I brought in another coach to join me. Chris and I are getting real about what it takes to shift your mindset, own your choices, and harness the power of all the tools and programs available to build a thriving recovery lifestyle. Just like you and me, Chris had to take a hard look at his life and make a decision to change. But he didn't just want to stop drinking. He wanted to live a life he could be proud of. So together, we're going to explore how to tap into recovery programs and tools to build a lifestyle that works for you. We'll share personal stories of our sobriety journeys to remind you that you're not alone and that change is not only possible, but right at your fingertips. If you've ever wondered how to take your sobriety to the next level or felt stuck in the same cycle over and over again, this conversation is for you. Let's get to it. Hi, Chris. Thank you so much for coming on and doing this episode with me. I'm really excited to get into this conversation.
Yeah. Hey, Angela. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited too.
Yeah. Why don't we start with take a minute and just tell everybody a little bit about you and what you do?
Sure. So I am an alcohol-free life coach and hypnotist, and I help people break free from alcohol, stop drinking, move on, and have an amazing life because that's what I did personally, and I love helping others do the same. It's pretty amazing to see people realize how badass they are on the other side of alcohol.
Amen to that. I love that. So tell me a little bit about your journey just from, we don't have to go into your whole drunkalog, but just from from when you realized that you needed to stop to actually stopping. To me, that's the most interesting part, right? Like we all have our drunkalog, but it's such an interesting journey from the moment that you're like, oh shit, like this is real and I'm going to have to do something about this. That's the real journey. And then getting to the place that you actually quit. So tell me a little bit about what that was like for you.
Yeah, well, no doubt. I mean, like most people, I didn't plan on becoming addicted to alcohol. It wasn't on my life's goals, but I ended up there. And I drank because I didn't even really like drinking when I was younger. I actually grew up above a bar. My mom owned a bar. I would DJ in it. And so I was around drinking quite a bit. And I'm like, you know what? That's really not for me. I don't get the appeal. And then I started drinking more and more because before I became a drinker, I was addicted to gambling. And when I ran out of money to gamble with, I turned to alcohol. That became my way to escape and numb out and all that stuff. And so in total, I drank heavily for about 15 years. And it was about 10 years into my drinking career when I finally started to have some conversations with myself about, you don't seem to be able to like take it or leave it. If you have to wake up early the next day and you're not able to drink, you get a lot of anxiety. You can't really sleep. You're irritable. Like, ooh, that might be a problem. But I kind of brushed it off. Like, this is just normal. And but the more I tried to like take a break, and realized that I wasn't really able to for a long period of time. I kept coming back to it. Then it started to get a little bit scary. And so for about 5 years, I would do like a dry January. Okay. And I was usually pretty successful at that. But in the back of my head, it was like, okay, it's almost day 31. I get to go back to it. And I didn't really have a plan. I didn't really know why I was wanting to take a break. I just was like, let me see if I can do this. And so I would do that. But then there would be other times where I would say, I'm going to take a 30-day break. And I would last about a week or two, and some stupid thing would happen, whether it was a good thing or a bad thing. And I would justify me going, well, I got to go back to drinking. And so I just kept doing that. And I read a lot of quit lit books, and I would get inspired. I would get fired up about it. But still in the back of my head, I wasn't admitting how bad of a problem it really was, because I didn't want to, right? I didn't want to take my head out of the sand. I didn't want to take the blinders off, because I knew once I did that, then it was like, okay, we really have to figure this out. And so I just kind of meandered along, and I would try to quit here and there for, like I said, about 4 or 5 years. And I would always feel really good when I would take a break, but yet I would keep going back to it. And when I really decided that I needed to get rid of it was I got laid off from, I was on the radio. I was 22 years as a radio on-air personality. And during COVID, a lot of people got laid off, all that kind of stuff. And so I lost my job. And then I started working for Apple, and I worked for them for 9 months. And then I got fired from Apple. And I was in a place where I'm like, I need to do something different here. This isn't working for me. I'm scared to not drink because I don't know what that looks like, and it's been a big part of my life for so long. And what am I going to do without it? But at the same time, I had had enough. I wasn't even really enjoying it anymore. It was dark. I was feeling very hopeless. Like, man, am I ever going to be able to not do this? Like, it was, so there was a lot of fear there. But I just decided, like, I got to do something. I can't keep wondering why everything in my life is messed up. It's alcohol. Like, it is alcohol. Everything was coming back to that. And once I finally got honest with myself was when I was able to start, breaking free for good.
How did you start connecting? This is always interesting to me because I could trace, like, every problem I had in my life, I could trace back to my drinking, right? Mm-hmm. Like, obviously financial problems. Like, if I was short on money, it's because I was blowing all my money going out and going to the bars and drinking, right? Relationship problems because I was not a good person to be in a relationship with, because I would disappear, because I would be out drinking and doing my own thing. And I was not super considerate of other people wanting to know where I was or what I was doing. So, like, everything I could kind of trace back to my drinking. Did you have a similar experience?
Yeah. I mean, when I look back at it now, it was hindering a lot of areas in my life, including just who I was as a person, because before I started drinking alcohol, I was driven, I was motivated. I was like a go-getter, entrepreneurial spirit, like, let's go attack life, And I started noticing, like, that's not me anymore. Like, all I want to do is numb out, and I'm not evolving. I'm not living up to the person that I know I deep down am. And I'm just kind of repeating every day, doing the same thing. And I feel like crap. And I wasn't happy with my career. Like I said, I was in the radio industry, and I'd done it for so long, and it had changed so much. And I was really in the comfort zone. And I was terrified of, well, what else am I going to do? Right? That was such a part of my identity. First of all, I mean, we'd get VIP, we'd get to go to these concerts, and they want you to drink. I would host bar events, like hosted by like Bud Light or alcohol companies. In the line of work that I did, you were encouraged to drink, especially in the country music genre. I don't know if you've ever heard any country music, but they like the drinking. And so I was kind of wrapped up in it, and didn't realize how much it was affecting me until looking back on it now. But like, I would go to these. Every Friday night I would host a bar event, and it was me, and I was in my late 30s, and it was all like these 21 to 25-year-olds, and I would have a free bar tab, and I would just be a drunken fool, and I was making an ass out of myself, and I would come home, and I'd want to like kiss my daughter and tuck her in, and my wife was like, nope, you're too drunk. Like, don't do that. And one time I like fell backwards on my wife. Thankfully I didn't like cracker ribs or anything, but I was just becoming this guy who was an idiot, and I got tired of being an idiot. And yeah, money, like I knew I could have made a lot more had I gotten out of the comfort zone, taken some risks, and like, what do I actually want to do with my life? Like, let's go do that. But no, alcohol was holding me back in pretty much every area of my life.
Yeah, for sure. So when you finally decided to quit, did you have a major like rock bottom moment that was the deciding factor? Or because I think like my rock bottom really was building up for 2 to 3 years, right? Like everything you're talking about. Like I was just burnt out on myself. Like I was grossed out by
Yeah.
myself. I was
Yeah.
tired of my own bullshit. Like I was just so burnt out on me and all my drama. And so, really, it was happening slowly over the course of a good 2 to 3 years. But I did have eventually that moment that just cemented it like, done, we're not drinking anymore. What was your rock bottom like?
Yeah, and I don't know if I ever had an official rock bottom moment. It was all these things that kept accumulating, like you were just talking about. And it was the moment when I was unemployed, right? And I needed to make a decision. What am I going to do here with the next chapter of my life? I could continue going down the path that I know, right? The path of least resistance, keep drinking, and I could go take some random job that I'll probably be miserable at again, and just keep going down that path of not really connecting with who I am and being a drinker. And I remember going, because I had a final interview set up for this job, and I just woke up that morning going, if I say yes to this job, my life is going to be in a really bad spot a year from now and be even more unhappy. The drinking's going to get more out of control, and I just don't want to do that. So I called that job. I said, I'm not going to do this. Sorry. And I decided at that moment that no matter what I'm going to do next, I know I'm meant for more. And I need to get rid of alcohol in order to get the clarity. Because if I don't, nothing is going to matter. Right. Like a lot of people, I have two close relatives that literally drank themselves to death. It's a big part of my family. It's, and I saw myself going down that path, and it scared the hell out of me. And the other thing that really made the decision for me was I had a 4-year-old daughter at the time. And, so both of my parents died when I was 19 years old. I was obviously very young, and they died 41 days apart from each other. And it was horrible. I wouldn't wish that on anybody. And I know the feeling of losing your parents at a young age. And I just had this thought of like, what am I doing here? I'm putting poison into my body. I'm intentionally, doing stuff that's harming myself. I could die young and leave my daughter without her father. Why am I going to do that intentionally? And that was really kind of the wake up call for me too. But I mean, it all came down to, yes, all these things had accumulated. I got tired of my own shit. I couldn't look at myself in the mirror. That's when I knew, like when I couldn't really meet myself, my own eyes in the mirror, because I wasn't aligned with the real me. It was like, that's enough. And I remember having the moment, the day that I decided to quit, my wife and I got into a stupid argument, and I went upstairs and I laid down and I closed my eyes, and there was like this flash of light that just kind of clicked in my brain. And from that moment, it was like, okay, the decision has been made. Like it's cemented. From this day forward, I am a non-drinker. And so I started to really identify as a non-drinker and just change my whole identity around that from that moment.
Oh, I love that. This is one of the big misconceptions about rock bottom is people think that rock bottom is an event, but rock bottom really is just the very moment you hit in your head that you're like, I can't live like this anymore. That's rock bottom. It doesn't have to be a DUI or a divorce or the job loss, right? Rock bottom is just when you can't freaking take it anymore and you are motivated enough to make changes.
Yeah. And I think it's important when people decide before they hit a rock bottom moment, it's very empowering to go, you know what? I don't have to quit drinking, but I want to, because I don't want to wait until something happens. You don't know when your last drink is going to be, or you get out and get in your car and kill somebody. You really don't know. Right. And so I think a lot of people we compare ourselves and we say, well, I'm not that bad yet because I don't have a DUI, because I haven't gotten divorced, because I haven't lost a job. I'm high functioning, all these things. And it's one of those scary things, because when people wait, sometimes it's too late, right? And so that's why one of the things is the clients that I help are people that have decided, they haven't hit rock bottom. I mean, they might have, but most of them haven't. They just get tired of it, and they say enough is enough. I need to get rid of this, right? And so, yeah, I think that's sometimes it's more challenging for people that haven't hit rock bottom, because it's like, well, we can just keep going. We can keep going. Nothing catastrophic has happened yet, so.
There is definitely some disillusion there, where you think you're not that bad, and having a rock bottom moment is very helpful to remove that fallacy for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But
I'll smack you in the face for sure.
Yeah, but it's one of my favorite shifts that's been happening in the sober world, certainly in the last 5 years for sure, is that people are stopping much earlier in the process. Now, that also creates different challenges, because I think then people are also relapsing more. And the one thing that I hate about relapse is I hate how emotionally damaging it is for people, and how it breaks down your belief in yourself and what you're capable of. Like emotionally, I think relapse just looks like it's very, very hard. So I hate that people have to go through that. But I do love that people are just stopping way earlier in the game. Like, you don't need catastrophe to understand that you're not doing something in a healthy way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a huge shift. I mean, if you look at the non-alcoholic beverage space, I mean, that's just boomed in the last 3-4 years,
Yeah.
right? It's no longer just O'Doul's that you have. I mean, there's a lot of good options out there, because a lot of people are going, yeah, I'm not so sure about this putting poison into my body, especially the younger generation. Like, they're not falling for it, right? Which is great.
Yeah.
I love that, because alcohol has been one of those things that's been handed down from generation to generation, and it gets ingrained into us, where a lot of us find ourselves in this place. We don't even know how we got here, right? And that's the scary part.
For sure. So what did you do? Okay, you decide. I also love that you said that you shifted your entire identity. I can relate so much to that from my early sobriety. Like, I just did not any longer think about my past and the drunk version of me. My energy went solely into building my future, who I want to be, the person I want to be, what I want my life to look like. It was so powerful. What did you do in your first year to stay sober? Like, what was your plan for yourself?
Yeah, and you hit the nail on the head right there. That was for me too, looking at my future, like getting really excited about what do I want for my life, and getting really clear on that, so I had something to pull me through. So that's really what I did, was like, all right, let's go make a life. And I knew I wanted to help people. I wanted to get out of the radio industry. I wanted to be a coach of some sort. And then I thought, well, because I really can't be a hypocrite. I hate hypocrites. So I'm like, so I'm going to go help people live their life, but I'm going to sit here and get drunk and pass out on my couch every night like that. I can't, that's not going to align with me. So I need to get myself in a good place first. And this is before I even knew I was going to be working specifically with people in the alcohol space. So I changed my identity to a person who is a non-drinker, right? I didn't say I'm going to try. I didn't say I want to see how far I can go this time. It was no. The door is shut on alcohol. It's not an option, because in the previous times when I would try to quit, that door was always still open a little bit, right?
Right.
It was always like, the thought was, once I get this thing under control, I'll be in a good space, and then I can be a quote unquote normal drinker, right? And so that thought had always been there in the past. This time it was, nope, the door is shut. Alcohol is off the table, right? So if I'm stressed, I got to figure out what would a non-drinker do when they're stressed, right? If when I'm celebrating and I want to go out with people, what do people who don't drink do? And I just had to really shift into that. That's one of the things I help my clients with. I think it's so important that we do shift our identity. We have to let that version of ourselves, in a way, die, right? We can't let it. We can't keep playing footsie with it. And it's
Mm-hmm.
important to go all in and say like, this is the new me. And instead of looking at it like, oh, poor me, shame, doom and gloom, I can't believe, I'm scared of what this is. Like, flip the script, man, and get excited about all the possibilities and the opportunities that are going to come your way. Yeah, there's going to be challenging moments. Yeah, you're going to have a moment where, something might trigger you, or you feel sad because, you're not having a drink or whatever. But when you go at it from the mindset of opportunity, and I'm exchanging this thing for all of these other things, I think that helped me tremendously, especially in the first year. And once you get that, the first year done, it's really cool because it's like then you have no more excuses, right? You can't say, well, I need to drink during the holidays, or
Right.
that's my birthday, or it's the summertime, all the excuses that we justify. Well, I need to drink at this event. You've proven to yourself, you've gone a whole calendar year, you didn't drink at any of those things. And so, it's game on at that point. Like, just keep rolling. Right. And I think coming back to the whole thing about the language that we use, I think it's really, we don't talk about it enough, where so many people will tell me, well, I'm going to try, I'm going to see how long I can go this time. And it's like, I believe you're setting yourself up for failure when you approach it that way, because
1,000%. Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Right. Because it's
Because
like,
you're
well,
already
wait.
planning your failure.
Yep. Absolutely. Again, it's the identity part, right? You're not trying to quit. You're a non-drinker. So, and the emphasis on the language really does matter.
The one that I have always found challenging is when people say, I hope I don't relapse. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
you don't hope you don't relapse. You don't relapse. You decide you're not
Yep.
relapsing. You don't hope, right? Like, I hope I win the lottery. Big fucking deal. It's not getting me
Yep.
anywhere. You
Yep.
decide you're not relapsing. Like, this is 1,000% in your control. And I think that's one of the challenges people face, though, is not wanting to really own the responsibility in all of those choices, right? Not really wanting to own, like, this is on me. This is
Yep.
100% on me in the choices that I make and how much effort I want to put into it and how good I want to be at it, right? Like, it is on us. It's not about hope and try. It's you decide and you do.
Yep. I love that. That's one of the big things I tell people, like, make that decision. You decide you are going to be a non-drinker, right? There's a difference between that and, well, we're going to try, we're going to hope, we're going to see, it's like, no.
Because alcohol is not going to chase you down the street and force itself down your throat. Like, there are a million choices that have to be made for you to end up with alcohol in your mouth, or drugs, or gambling, or porn, or whatever the thing is.
Yep. And you nailed it when you talked about taking 100% responsibility and accountability. I see so many people not doing that. And I know that if they would, it would help them tremendously on this journey. If you just go, you know what? It's because of me that I'm in this position. It's up to me. It's because of the decisions I've made. And it's up to me to change this. It's not up to somebody else. And you can put the blame on anything you want, but ultimately, until you take 100% responsibility and accountability, it's going to be difficult to move forward, right? And you got to look in the mirror and say, look, it's not necessarily your fault. Like, you don't need to blame, right? Because
Right.
we get here however we get here. It's pushed on us. It's celebrated. People in our lives do it. So it's fine that we got here, but it's like, we got to take that ownership and say, you know what? The person that's going to change this and do something about it is 100% me. Because that's really when things changed for me. Because before, I was like, well, I lost my job, and, my buddies, if I wouldn't have gotten with this friend group, because they love to drink, maybe I wouldn't have gotten to this place. And it was putting blame everywhere else except myself. And it's like, no, man, you chose to put the bottle in your mouth every time and continue on.
Right.
So, yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's interesting too, though, because I will say, on that extreme ownership, right? That really sunk in for me in the business world before it did in the sobriety world, in really understanding, And I remember hearing in AA forever, there's one of my favorite sayings is my life is my fault.
Hmm.
Like whatever the state of your life is a result of the choices that you made, good or
Hmm.
bad. My life is my fault. But that again really, really sunk in and hit home for me in entrepreneurship before it did in sobriety, right? And maybe because I didn't struggle so much in sobriety. I was a person that quit drinking and I was done and I moved on exactly like you're talking about. I never relapsed. I didn't fuck around with it. I never said I'm going to have just one. I never said maybe I'm going to drink someday again or I'm going to control it. Like I knew all of that was over.
Hmm.
That I just didn't play those mind games with myself. Like I quit and I was finished. I wanted a different life and I focused 1,000% on creating a different life, period.
Yep. And you're absolutely right. Not just with drinking, but when you realize nobody's going to change your life, nobody's saving you, nothing's going to come and fix things for you. That's when something shifts in you. When you go, this is
Yeah.
all on me. The life that I want, I'm the director, I'm in charge. If I want change, boom, I got to start making that change. And the old me was not in that mindset. It was,
No.
oh God, if I could just find my purpose and my passion, then I will do this. Like waiting for something to fall in my lap or this outside
Yes.
force to like show me what to do and fix my life for me. You'll be waiting forever. Like it's not going to happen. When you grab life by the balls or the lady balls or whatever, and you go, this is my life and I want it to look like this. And it doesn't matter what I've done in the past. This is what I want for myself now and going forward. Boom, it's game on. And you
Yeah.
can have a whole different life when you start going at it from that mentality.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally agree. So, how did you shift your idea of fun? Because you were a going out person. I was a bartender, right? So, I was always out. I was always in clubs, working or not working. I spent more time in clubs than I spent in my home, for a couple of decades. So, how did you shift your idea of what fun looked like?
Yeah, I had to, identify with, well, what is actually fun in my mind? Because for so much of my life, I was kind of going through the motions of what everybody else thought was fun, right? And I was on autopilot, but it was like, okay, is it really fun to go out to the clubs and scream and holler? Like I'm past that point now. What's fun for me is hanging with my family, and learning and reading a book, growing, exercising, doing things that are helpful to me. And so I shifted that, like, well, I get to decide what fun is, right? Going to the bar and having stupid drunken conversations and repeating myself and hearing other people repeat and laughing at things that aren't really that funny and being really loud, and that's really not fun, but so many people have convinced themselves that it is. And so for me, I started going, well, what do I want to be fun? And I really simplified my life too. I took a lot of things out of my life that no longer resonated with me, that drained my energy, and I started leaning into the things that lit me up, right? And it's like when I could take those things away, lean into the things that I love, simplify my life, take all the pressure off of the crap that doesn't matter, that really has put me into a life of peace and contentment and joy, right? And no, it's not always wonderful, but it's the life that I want, right? And I continue to tweak that. And I could still I will go to bars, I will all of my friends still drink, right? And I'll go watch football games with them, and I'm fine. Like I love it. There's nothing wrong with it. But you know what? I get to leave when I want. I don't have to worry about getting a DUI or hitting anybody. And I get to have a wonderful night's sleep and wake up feeling refreshed. I've been on vacations without alcohol. That was one of the big things I was worried about. Like, oh man, a vacation, you're not going to drink. We tell ourselves this, there's no way. But it's like, no, now I really get to enjoy those things. And the cool thing too is, our brain is so flooded with dopamine while we're drinking that anything besides that seems so boring and dull and just doesn't really give you anything. And it takes a while for that to reset. But once it does, I've really been able to just enjoy the little moments in life. Just even like hanging with my daughter and having a conversation about stuff. And I just pause and I'm in the present moment going, God, this is really great. I have an amazing life. I love this. Where when I was a drinker, none of that mattered. It was when I wasn't drinking, it was thinking about when I could drink. And that was where the focus
Mhm.
was, and everything else was dull. And that's just, man. it's crazy how we accept that we have to live that way and feel that way for so long.
Yeah. It's crazy that it becomes normal. I
Hmm.
always say, like, I had no idea how screwed up my thinking was because it was the only thinking I ever had. And same thing with that lifestyle. Like, I really didn't understand how dysfunctional my lifestyle was because it was how I had always lived as an adult, right? Like, I was always a drinking, partying, going out person. I started working in bars very young, and that was just always normal to me. And I had no idea there was this whole other side of life and this whole other piece of the population of the world that didn't do those things and slept well all the time and woke up refreshed and exercised. And I just didn't even know that existed because I had never lived that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Another realization I had at some point too, on this fun conversation, I realized that there really is a recklessness and an irresponsibility that comes with drinking that's really fun, right? Because you don't have to take responsibility for anything. You go, oh my God, I can't believe I did that. I was so drunk. You don't have to be responsible for anything you do. When you get sober, you're responsible for all of it, right? If you want to have fun, then you have to get off your ass and go have fun. You have to make it happen, right? Like, it's your
Yep.
responsibility. You can't do dumb shit and blame it on the alcohol anymore. If you're going to
Yep.
do dumb shit, you have to just own it,
Yeah.
like, and that's,
I'm
I
just a
really,
dumb person, you know? That's
yeah, right. I just do dumb shit. I still do dumb
do
shit
dumb shit.
sometimes. Yeah. But it is like, that is the thing I will say that I will always have a little piece of me that misses is just the recklessness of it because you don't have to be responsible. And
Yeah.
that's what your 20s are really beautiful for. And I'm so grateful it's over.
Right? Same. I had
I'm
my fun.
grateful I
I had
survived
those
it.
moments.
Yeah, for
Yep.
sure. Okay, what has been one of your most challenging life moments in sobriety? And how did you get through it and stay sober?
Such a good question. I'm trying to think. There hasn't been like a big event where it's been like, oh, this is a challenge. There's been some little ones here and there. It's more so just kind of the everyday stuff of hey, we're going to go out to a nice dinner, or we're going to hang out with friends, or there's this party, those kind of things, even holidays where a part of my brain wants to say, and it's a pride thing. It's like, well, who are you to tell you can't have a drink, right? Who are you to say this whole poor me thing, like you're a person who can't drink? That thought will be there, and it quickly goes away when I'm like, yeah, but I'm okay being that person who can't drink. I'm okay with being that guy. But there'll be those little moments, I would say, along the way where a little bit of sadness, a little bit of like, woe is me, will kick in, at times. But then I just remind myself of how much life is a lot better in every area of my life since deciding to quit drinking. And it doesn't matter, any amount of alcohol would never be worth jeopardizing any of that. So I would say that there hasn't really been like this one challenging moment, at least not one that's coming to me right now. But there have been a few of those moments along the way.
Yeah, for sure. Now, I want to touch on something that you touched on a little bit a few minutes ago, with putting a time limit on how long you're quitting drinking, right? Like saying, I'm going to quit for 30 days. I think everybody does this, right? On their journey to figuring this thing out. I think everybody has these moments of, oh, I'm going to take a break. I just need to take a step back. I remember like all my drunk friends would be like, oh, I'm giving up alcohol for Lent. And I would do that too. And I don't even know what Lent is, but I would do that, and,
Yep.
and it was just this almost, I think for an alcoholic like me, for sure, it was this attempt to prove to myself that I had some control, right? But the truth
Mm-hmm.
is, we're so obstinate and stubborn. Like, I can walk down, I call it walking down time. I can walk down 30 days like nothing, especially if I can use that to show you how strong I am and how much control I have. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I can definitely walk down 30 days pretty easily just to be able to go, haha, told you I could do it, But I would love for you to elaborate a little bit on what you were saying earlier, what we talked about in that, oftentimes when you put a time frame on it, oh, I'm going to quit for 6 days, I'm going to quit for 90 days, I'm going to quit for 30 days. I'm going to 1 year no beer is a big thing. Like when you put that, it's an end date too. It's an expiration date also. And you have to
Mm-hmm.
understand that you're kind of chopping off your commitment in that
Yeah.
subconsciously, right? And I would love to hear your thoughts on that as well.
Yeah. And I think, if you want to start there, I think it's a great place to start.
Yeah.
But I do think, like, if you really know that alcohol has made things more challenging for you, like if you know that it's the problem, then I would say don't put an expiration date on it. Just say I'm a non-drinker, right? Like, and that doesn't mean, because I always talk to my clients about like not saying, oh, I'm never drinking again, this is forever, and making these big proclamations, because our brains hate that. And then it gets us overwhelmed, right? And so we don't have to worry about forever. We don't have to talk about all that. But really, again, that's why I think it comes down to shifting your identity to a person who doesn't drink. But, I don't think there's anything wrong with taking a break for 30 days and seeing what the difference is. What do you notice about yourself? I would say take a little bit of a longer break. I would say if you're going to take just a break, a 90-day break would be a better way to do it than just a 30-day break, because you'll notice more in those 90 days than you will in the 30 days.
Yeah.
And so if that's where you're at, right, and you want to reevaluate your relationship with alcohol, because maybe you don't want to say forever or never again. I mean, take the 90-day break, but really be curious about what's happening in those 90 days. Really ask, notice what you're feeling differently. If you are sleeping better, if you are more present, there's clarity, the brain fog is gone, and lean into those feelings, right? So, yeah, I think it can be a good place to start. But for me, I was like, I knew if I put a date like it on that again, I was going to be right back where I was. And I
Yeah.
had done the start stop thing so many times, and I'm like, that's not going to work this time.
Yeah. And that's where I think it can be. There's a lot of great information in doing those things, right? And like I said, we all do it. Like everybody does this, taking a little break and all of it. We all do it. I did a 30-day break once. I did a 60-day break once. I learned a lot from those experiences, especially about how out of control I could get, how quickly once I started drinking again. Like I learned a lot of really valuable information about who I was and who I was as a drinker, and what my control capabilities really were or weren't, as it
Yeah.
were. But I learned a lot about myself. So I think those things are valuable for sure. But I think once you're at a place that you really know you need to stop drinking, I feel like you're just kind of selling yourself short and this where it can start to sound kind of confusing too. I definitely was taking it kind of 30 days at a time. My commitment was I'm not drinking anymore, period. Just like you're saying, I am now a non-drinking person, period. But because I'm an AA person, having the coins that I was getting every month, like those were monumental moments for me. Like I could not wait for my next 30 days, right? So I could get my coin. And like that really sustained me in a huge way my first year, because it broke it down in these kind of bite-sized pieces. So I was just aiming for 30 days at a time, but I knew big picture, I wasn't drinking again. I mean, I had no desire to drink. I didn't have cravings and all of that stuff. Like I was finished. I was moving on to a new life. But breaking it down in those bite-sized pieces definitely helped me probably take a lot of the pressure off.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think, again, this whole conversation comes down to no two people quit the same way, right? And
Mm-hmm.
one person is going to go at it differently than the other. However you decide to do it, I think is great. Whatever works for you. And if you tried one way and that didn't work, that doesn't mean that you stop trying. You do something
Right.
else, right? And I think that's why where we are at in this moment in time is there are a lot of options. There's other ways for people to go down this path. But I think the overarching thing that is helpful for people that are going through this is community and understanding that you're
Hmm.
not alone. You're not, there's so many people out there that are struggling, that are going through the same thing. And so many people suffer in silence because it's not something that we just necessarily talk about with people. And so when you can find people that are like you and they've been in the same position, man, that's huge, right? You can relate to them. You go, oh, thank God I'm not the only one who feels this way, So definitely, no matter how you want to quit drinking, I think having a community of some sort is going to be huge.
Yeah. And I love all the options too, because use all of them.
Hmm.
Like I'm an AA person, but that doesn't mean that my sobriety was based solely on Alcoholics Anonymous. Like a lot of my sobriety was based on neuroscience because I got
Hmm.
sober at a time that the neuroscience of addiction was huge. There were huge breakthroughs when I got sober. So it was all over the news. I mean, if you wanted to find it, which I did because I'm a nerd, but it was these headlines were everywhere. So neuro was a huge piece of my journey and understanding the brain and what addiction is doing in the brain and how to repair my brain and how to change my brain, right? Like that
Yep.
was huge. And that's what I love about all the options. It's like, dude, use every bit of everything that resonates with you, regardless where you get it from, where it comes from, use all of it because we all need just a ton of tools.
Yeah. And again, with the comparison game with this, I think can be harmful sometimes because it's like, oh, if I quit drinking, then I got to go and be a gym buff and I got to be there, 7 days a week and I got to get really buff. And like, no, you don't have to do that. Right.
Right.
It's cool if you want to do
Or
that and you want
the
to,
ultra marathon people, like so many people
yes.
quit drinking and become these ultra marathon runners. I'm like, I am not doing that. I
Right.
am not running anywhere.
Yep. Yep. Same. And I'm like, oh man, but then I go, that's okay. I'm not drinking, and that's the main thing here.
Right.
And as long as you're growing, and you come from the mindset of having a growth mindset and wanting to continue figuring out who you are, and that's the key, I think. And one of the best things for me when I quit, and when I see with my clients too, is like you get to reconnect with that version of yourself that
Mm,
alcohol took away from you, right? That
yeah.
that version of you that, like when you were a kid and you didn't care and you were driven and motivated or whatever that is, right? You get to go, oh, that's me again. That's, hey, old friend. And that's
Yeah.
such a wonderful thing that alcohol takes from us, among other
Yeah,
things that it takes from us. But yeah.
for sure. Okay. Last question, favorite question. What is your favorite thing about being a sober person?
Hmm. There's so many.
I know.
I would, so I don't, I want to make sure I say the right one, the one that's the loudest for me. So I think what I was just talking about would kind of fall into line with that. Was it's like I am aligned with who I truly am again, and I feel so good about that. Whereas if I were to get hit by a bus tomorrow, I'm knocking on wood. I hope that doesn't happen. But if I were, I'm good with who I am. Uh, and I couldn't say that when I was a drinker. There was shame, there was guilt, there was, that this is not the real you. But being a non-drinker has allowed me to align myself with who I am and my thoughts and my actions, and all of it is I do what I say I'm going to do, and I love that about having an alcohol-free life, because I think when we're drinking, it doesn't allow us to fully be the real us.
For sure. I love that. Chris, thank you so much for coming on and doing this episode with me. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a blast. Thank you for having me.
Okay, what a fantastic conversation. I loved this one. And if you're in need of some practical tips to navigate the holidays without alcohol, then get my Sober Holiday podcast playlist. I handpicked this collection of episodes to be your go-to guide for staying strong through all the festive triggers. There are episodes on cravings and triggers, how to handle social situations and holidays, what to say to people, how to get sober, how to stay sober, and so much more. This is more than 20 hours of powerful episodes to help you not just survive the holidays, but to have fun and be totally prepared. You can get the playlist at addictionunlimited.com/playlist. I will link that in the show notes as always. Again, it's addictionunlimited.com/playlist. Download it now. Have your best holiday season yet. addictionunlimited.com/playlist. I hope you're having a fantastic day. Don't forget, Dry January Boot Camp is just around the corner. We'll talk about that more when I see you next week.
You've reached the end of another great episode of the Addiction Unlimited podcast. Candid and honest conversation about addiction and recovery. Be sure to visit us at addictionunlimited.com to join the conversation and access show notes and links to everything we talked about. Love this episode? Please take 30 seconds to subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes to help us improve and give you the information you want. Thanks for listening. See you next week.